This isn't going well, Jong-soo said, shaking his head. Jin-Woo turned to him, looking puzzled. What's up? Jong-soo gestured toward the cave entrance, where a massive two-headed ogre was blocking their path. This raid is turning out way tougher than I thought. Who expects a two-headed ogre right at the start? Jin-Woo frowned. That does sound rough. Jong-soo rubbed his chin thoughtfully, then broke into a grin. Hey, you know what these guys are called, don't you? He asked. Jin-Woo shook his head, curious now. Gravekeepers, Jong-soo announced dramatically. Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. Why's that? Jong-soo leaned in, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. Probably because they're super tough and guard these places like their graves. Plus, once you face one, well, let's just hope we don't end up as their next victims. Jin-Woo rolled his eyes good-naturedly. Great. Just what I wanted to hear. But Jong-soo's explanation was nothing like what Jin-Woo expected. He peered deep into the darkness of the cave, his expression serious. To him the air inside felt creepy, like something bad was lurking in the shadows. If you find a two-headed ogre right at the entrance, instead of in the boss lair, he said quietly, his voice tinged with concern. The dungeon is crawling with undead creatures. The emergency center at the Hunters Association got a frantic call. On the other end was a teenager, her voice shaky. Is this the Hunters Association? She asked between sobs. The person taking calls could hear her crying, and knew something was wrong. Yes, this is the Hunters Association, they replied calmly. Please state your emergency. I'm at my school. There are magic beasts outside. Outside. Where are you right now? I'm hiding, the girl said, her voice shaking. I was with my friend. But, hick, my friend was taken. I'm in the bathroom. Outside. The girl couldn't stop sobbing, making it hard to understand her. But the person on the other end of the call was trained for emergencies, and managed to piece together what she was saying. An alert was sent immediately to the main office of the Hunters Association. Magic beast spotted at a school. One person was hurt, and the caller was hiding. Could something crazy have happened at school? A staffer felt a chill thinking about it, and focused on saving the girl. How many magical creatures are there? They asked. Are they close? I don't know. Oh, puss screams. Cuss, there are too many screams. Hike. Am I going to die? Please stay calm, the call taker said firmly. They had been doing this job for a long time, and knew how scared people could get when they were in danger. Staying calm was super important in moments like this. The main goal was to help the caller stay steady and give them the instructions they needed. That's what working at an emergency call center was all about. Hunters from the association are on their way right now. They'll do everything they can to save you, so you just need to stay calm until they arrive. Do you understand? Wait, so, does that mean I'm not gonna die? The voice on the other end started to calm down a bit, which was a good sign. Now that the student was calming down a little, the staffer asked the most important question to help them survive. By any chance, do you know what kind of magic beasts they are? Yes, I know. They were talking on the phone. One person said, on TV. I saw them. The other asked, what kind of magic beasts are they? If these creatures had dull senses and only used their eyes, hiding in a bathroom was a smart move. The caller hoped that's exactly what they were dealing with. Their body looks like a human's. The person stammered, but they have really ugly faces. Wait, they have green skin, someone said. The staffer's eyes went wide. Are you talking about orcs? Yes, that was the name orcs. No. The staffer snapped. They jumped up and shouted, get out of there right now. Orcs are despite the desperate prayers. A loud crash echoed over the line, the bathroom door being ripped off its hinges. Then came a scream that sent chills down your spine. Jiwable. Meanwhile, the Knights Guild's raid was going smoothly. Something super strange was going on. Another giant magic beast. This one, a rotting monster as big as a house, managed to dodge the hunter's attacks instead of fighting back. Then, just like before, it got caught by a mage's spell and ended up in a really bad situation. This kept happening over and over, and the hunters were getting suspicious. Isn't this weird? One of them asked. I mean, why are they all running away from us like that? It's almost like they're being chased by something else, another hunter said, frowning. The group had been facing some seriously powerful undead creatures, vampires, liches, dread worms, and red ghouls. and every time these monsters seemed more scared of whatever was behind them than the hunters themselves. Fighting the undead was no joke. Beating them wasn't the only problem, they might just get back up again. You couldn't drop your guard for a second because those monsters could recover or come back to life at any moment, ready to strike back. But these undead were different. They acted so spooked by something else that they didn't even try to fight back. Jong-soo figured that was why they seemed to give up without a struggle. He couldn't help but think that if he had known the enemies would be this weak, he might not have brought Jin-Woo along. Dungeons are totally unpredictable. This top-tier dungeon turned out to be a total cakewalk. What a relief it looked like they could finish the raid safely without any major injuries. It turned out okay. In the end, even though they lost some money. Jin-Woo, on the other hand, wasn't too thrilled. He had been super excited about this A-rank dungeon. But things didn't go as planned. Even though he could feel strong mana deeper inside, he wasn't gaining much experience at all. Plus Jin-Woo hadn't even gotten to fight, because the Knights Guild was crushing it on their own. Jin-Woo let out a quiet sigh, and then froze. He looked back over his shoulder. There right behind him stood healer Yiram, with a curious expression. "What's wrong, Hunter Sung? Is something behind us?" Jin-Woo didn't answer. His heart was racing, like crazy. His eyes were fixed on something beyond the gate, and he looked super worried. Yiram finally noticed that something was off. "Hunter Sung?" she asked again. Jin-Woo's face turned dark. Then they heard terrifying screams, a rog, and a bee, echoing around the school. It was chaos. Only a few students had managed to escape the building. The ones still alive were either lying dead on the ground or frantically running from the orcs. But no matter how fast they ran, it didn't matter. The orcs had started their attack from the bottom floor and were moving upward, killing anyone in their path. "Help!" someone screamed. The students who were still alive huddled in their classrooms, covering their ears to block out the horrifying screams echoing from below. The 12th grade classrooms were on the very top floor of the school. Gina was one of the students trapped inside, unable to escape. The only thing stopping the orcs from reaching them were the doors they had blocked with whatever they could find: chairs, desks, and even a broken mop. "Crap," one boy muttered, his voice shaking as he gripped a chair like it was a weapon. Another boy clutched the mop handle tightly, but neither of them looked very confident. If the orcs broke through, Gina and her classmates would be easy targets. Their only hope was that the hunters would find them before the orcs did. Ablam! The dented door burst off its hinges. Students screamed at the top of their lungs as two blood-covered orcs stormed into the classroom. A boy guarding the entrance dropped his mop and sprinted toward the back door, but an orc waiting there struck him down with a brutal swing of its axe. The boy crumpled to the floor, lifeless. The students' terrified cries filled the air. Both exits were now blocked by snarling orcs. The other students were squished against the windows, screaming. They knew jumping from the 6th floor or getting caught by the orcs would end badly. Voices called out Jin-Woo's name. Gina was huddled with her classmates in a corner, trying to stay hidden and look small. She squeezed her eyes tightly closed, hoping her brother Jin-Woo would appear. He was an S-rank hunter, and she knew he'd come if she called out to him. He was her last hope. "Grr," one of the orcs growled. Another responded with a gutturalk. The orc guards stopped in their tracks and let out sharp growls as they communicated. One of them barked, "Sir, there's a human nearby with magic." Another snapped back, "Take care of them first." Humans with magic were way more dangerous than regular people. They had to be stopped before anyone else. The orc who got the captain's order scanned the room with sharp eyes until it spotted Gina. It shouted, snatching her by the wrist. It yanked her to the center of the classroom. "Is this the one?" the orc asked, holding her tight. "Yes, Captain," a smaller orc replied. "There's a faint trace of magic coming from this girl." It didn't matter if the power was hers or from something she carried. The captain had found what they were looking for. It was clear Gina had to die first. The captain raised his axe high above her head, and she let out a terrified scream before squeezing her eyes shut tight. With a cold, unfeeling face, the captain took a deep breath and swung the blade down with all his might. Just as the axe was about to strike, a strange noise echoed through the air. Avu. Black smoke puffed out from Gina's shadow, and quickly took shape. The captain froze in shock as a towering high orc in black armor grabbed his wrist. Before anyone could react, the orc slammed its massive fist into the captain's head, crushing it like a melon. The students watching couldn't believe their eyes. Their minds raced as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. 1 second, Gina was about to be killed in front of them. The next, soldiers in black armor seemed to appear out of nowhere and save her. Everyone's mouths hung open in stunned silence. Soldiers? You might wonder if they even deserved that name. These warriors looked kind of like orcs, but were way bigger and more intimidating. They had bright red skin, making them stand out next to the invading monsters, who seemed like smaller, less scary versions. By comparison, the students' reactions made sense. Jin-Woo had hidden these powerful beings in Gina's shadow. Once they were high-ranking orc bodyguards, tasked with protecting Fang, a powerful shaman boss from a top-tier dungeon. These high orcs were the best of the best, of them among their own kind. A regular orc versus a mighty high orc warrior. The fight was over before it even started. One of the high orcs smashed its fist down, showing off just how massive the power difference really was. Boom! With one hit, an orc's head cracked open and its body dropped to the classroom floor. The students were shocked. Wait a minute, had the monster that nearly killed them just been crushed by something even scarier? The high schoolers froze in shock and fear, except for Gina. Tears filled Gina's eyes as she realized what the black armor meant. Jin-Woo, she thought, her heart racing. Is Jin-Woo? She could sense her brother's presence, even though 3 towering high orcs had formed a protective circle around her. The orc standing right behind Gina let out a low growl, ready to defend her without moving an inch. The 2 remaining invaders tried to escape, but the towering orc who had smashed the captain's head grabbed them by the backs of their necks. The orcs let out angry growls, as they dangled in midair. They kicked and struggled, but their fight ended quickly when their heads collided with a loud bam. Their foreheads burst open, and soon their lifeless bodies thudded against the floor. Hud, thud. In just a flash, all 3 orcs who had attacked the classroom were defeated. And just like that, it was over. High orcs, towering in their black armor, planted themselves firmly around Gina. Time seemed to freeze as the other students slowly caught their breath. Their hearts still raced from the chaos, but now confusion took over. Wait, what just happened? Someone whispered, breaking the silence. The students glanced at each other, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Did they just save us? Another voice trembled. It was all so surreal. These creatures once seen as monsters were now standing guard, protecting them. And one thing became clear, these black-armored orcs weren't going to hurt them. But then a worried voice cut through the confusion. What about Gina's brother? Where is he? Gina sniffled. But the high orcs didn't say a word. Jin-Woo. She tried again. Instead of answering, they gently stopped her from stepping away. Gina tilted her head in confusion, and looked up at one of the towering figures. It shook its head firmly. Her safety was their top concern. They couldn't let her wander around a building crawling with danger. Suddenly heavy footsteps echoed from outside the classroom. Stomp. 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 A stomp. Stomp. Again. The higher soldiers swiftly pulled out their weapons, ready for action. The students held their breath, nervous but also a bit excited to see the orcs prepare for battle with calm confidence. The kids finally had a fighting chance, and it was a huge relief to have such reliable allies by their side. But some were also crying out of fear, anxiety, worry, and sadness. Hike. They hugged their sobbing friends tightly and held their breath. The footsteps were getting closer. Stomp, stomp. All the orcs spread around the school had heard their brothers' cries and were now gathered in front of the 12th grade classroom. Jin-Woo was picking up strong signals from the high orc warriors assigned to Gina. Was something happening in her area? Hunter Sung. Yerim called his name again, sounding worried. Jin-Woo pursed his lips and walked past her. She raised an eyebrow. What was wrong with him? Just moments before, Jin-Woo had been totally calm. She couldn't believe how different Jin-Woo looked now. Just moments ago he was an S-rank hunter acting super strangely. After glancing over his shoulder, did he notice something they'd all missed? But Yerim felt a strange knot in her stomach. Something didn't feel right. Yoontae looked over his shoulder and said, Hunter Sung is coming this way. What? Jongsu stopped dead in his tracks, and the whole team followed suit. Why was Hunter Sung showing up out of nowhere? Jongsu casually turned around, but when he saw Jin-Woo's eyes, he almost gasped. What was happening? Jin-Woo's mood had completely flipped. Something was very off. Jong-soo thought hard but couldn't remember doing anything to upset their backup. So why was Jin-Woo looking so angry? Dealing with such a powerful person when he was in a bad mood made Jong-soo nervous. Maybe Jin-Woo was having a tough day, or dealing with personal issues. Instead of assuming it's his fault, Jong-soo could try talking calmly to Jin-Woo to understand what's wrong. If that seems too scary, asking a friend for help might make things easier. Sometimes people just need someone to listen. They were deep inside a dungeon, where anything could happen. Jong-soo moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the dark space. Hunter-sung, what's wrong? He asked. Jin-Woo didn't waste time with small talk. Something urgent has come up, he said quickly. I have to leave now. Jong-soo's eyes widened in shock. He had been worried about things taking a turn for the worse, and now it seemed like his fears were coming true. So far everything had gone off without a hitch, so much so that you might even wonder why Jin-Woo was needed on this raid at all. But Jong-soo wasn't some rookie, he'd been a hunter since they first started. He knew all too well why that could be dangerous. When things seem too easy, that's when people start to let their guard down. Stay sharp, he said, his voice firm but calm. Just because it's going well now doesn't mean we can let up. We don't know what's ahead, and losing our strongest player would be a huge risk. His face turned serious as the weight of those words hung in the air. If you go, it could put everyone in danger, he said, trying to talk Jin-Woo out of leaving as calmly as possible. He didn't want to make things worse by upsetting Jin-Woo more than necessary. After all, Jin-Woo looked really intimidating right now. Jong-soo felt like he was walking on eggshells as he tried to figure out what Jin-Woo would do next. Jin-Woo's mouth felt super dry when he finally answered. Alright, let's do this. Right, yeah. Jong-soo nodded even before Jin-Woo explained the plan. I'll call someone I trust. Jin-Woo continued. They'll handle it from here. Jong-soo loved the idea. Another hunter, and one approved by Jin-Woo Sung himself. Who could it be? Jong-soo thought about who could replace Jin-Woo. Maybe Jong In-chai. Or Ha-In-cha. He remembered finding a document about Ha-In in Jin-Woo's office once. Hunter Cha popped into his head. Perfect. Even though he couldn't stop Jin-Woo from leaving, the idea of having Hunter made Jong-soo smile. How strong would Hunter need to be? Jong-soo wondered aloud. Anyone was better than Dong-wook Ma, from Fame Guild. His eyes sparkled with excitement, as he imagined it all coming together. Anxiety started to fade, replaced by excitement, and Jong-soo wasn't the only one. Everyone else in the group couldn't take their eyes off. Juan faces a mix of thrill and doubt. Without wasting another second, Juan called upon the strongest warrior in his shadow army, Baru. The Ant King emerged from a cloud of black smoke, bowing low on one knee before Jin-Woo. My king, he said, his voice deep and steady. The hunters jumped back in shock, overwhelmed by the sheer power of Baru's mana, which he made no effort to hide. Is that? One of them gasped. How is this possible? Jong-soo's eyes widened in disbelief. Ish Hunter-sung. Isn't that the monstrous ant from Jeju Island? He stuttered. Juan nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. He didn't have to explain anything because the high-rank hunters already knew who Baru was. Everyone in the country had seen how strong Baru was. After all, he'll be taking over for me, Jin-Woo said. Jong-soo's eyes widened in shock. What? He asked, hardly believing what he'd just heard. Jin-Woo knew Jong-soo had a million questions, but there was no time to answer them. Ignoring the guild master's panic, Jin-Woo turned to Baru and gave him an order. Protect the humans, Baru said quickly, then looked up at Jin-Woo. What should I do with the non-humans? My king, he asked. Jin-Woo glanced into the dark cave before answering, his voice calm and firm. Do whatever you want. Baru had been holding back his desire to fight, but now it exploded into pure excitement, rushing through him like a powerful energy. He jumped to his feet and let out a loud roar. Skrrl, The sound echoed through the cave, fierce and unstoppable. A deafening roar echoed through the cave, sending chills down the spines of every hunter, whether the creature's fury was directed at them or not. Jong-soo gulped hard, his voice trembling as he whispered, Are we really supposed to finish this raid with that monster? His back was soaked with cold sweat. Jin-Woo didn't seem to notice the fear around him. With a calm nod, he summoned an army of shadowy ants to aid Baru. The dark creatures let out strange, high-pitched noises almost like they were cheering. They had been trapped for so long that finally being free brought them joy. The hunters were frozen in fear. Please. Wait. Yiren cried out, stopping Jin-Woo in his tracks. Are you really leaving after setting these monsters loose? If you want, Jin-Woo replied coolly. I can call back my creatures. But, his icy glare made Yiram shiver. If I do, whatever happens to the Knights Guild is your responsibility, not mine. Jin-Woo had promised to protect the guild members, but he didn't have to take blame if they turned down his help. The rest of the strike squad, including Yiram, were left silent by Jin-Woo's firm words. In the blink of an eye, he vanished in an instant, gone from the party scene. Jin-Woo wondered, how much time do I have left before my cooldown ends? I put some distance between himself and the Knights Guild, then pulled up his skill window. Each job exclusive skill can be used after 1 or 2:16. Jin-Woo bit down hard on his lower lip. Seriously. He thought. Jin-Woo was stuck waiting over an hour before he could use the shadow exchange skill, but he couldn't ignore the constant signals from his soldiers. A bad feeling crept over him. I can't wait an hour, as he thought. His first priority, get out of the dungeon, now. But just as he decided to make a move, something weird happened. The undead that his strike squad had defeated began to rise again one by one. Jin-Woo's eyes blazed with fury. Jin-Woo was furious with these annoying creatures blocking his way, more angry than he had ever felt before. Just as Jin-Woo was about to stomp forward in frustration, something unexpected happened. The undead magic beast suddenly thudded to the ground, their knees hitting the dirt with a thud. Thump, thump. Every single one of them bowed down before him without fail. Wait, why were they? Jin-Woo's eyes widened in shock. Had these creatures really been trying to escape because of him? Is it because I'm a necromancer with an advanced job class who can control the undead? Weird. Definitely. There was no time to figure out why. Jin-Woo quickly sent the dagger in his hand back into inventory, and bolted for the exit. Outside the gate, people stared in shock as Jin-Woo appeared. Their eyes were wide with surprise. What was Hunter Sung doing coming out alone? But Hunter didn't seem to care about the curious looks everyone was giving him. Suddenly, a voice shouted, "Castle." Then, out of nowhere, a winged dragon covered in black steam appeared with a loud screech. Kree, Kef. Everyone knew this dragon from the few times it had been on TV. People started shouting in surprise and excitement. Wow, look at that. That's Jin-Woo Sung. Jin-Woo hopped onto Castle's back. As the crowd cheered loudly, he leaned forward and whispered urgently, "To my sister, as fast as you can." He wasn't worried about what got in their way. Nothing was going to stop them. Kaizo let out a happy roar as he soared through the sky without any worries. "Kree," he shouted, flapping his big wings and taking off into the air. The final challenge was now set free. Grokter, the orc leader, came out of the dungeon, ready to lead. His body was covered in black tattoos which told the story of his many victories in battle. Grokter, Grokter. The other orcs cheered as they gathered around their chieftain, excited for what was next. The crowd chanted Grokter's name as they bowed their heads low. Meanwhile, Grokter stood tall, his head almost touching the ceiling. Suddenly, loud noises erupted from upstairs. The scouting group had sent warriors to take over the human castle earlier, but the fight wasn't done yet. A nervous orc rushed to explain the situation to the angry chieftain. "High orc warriors are helping the humans." He said, "High orcs," Grokter growled, narrowing his eyes. Ordinary orcs couldn't stand a chance against high orcs. This meant their leader needed to step in. "How many?" Grokter asked sharply. 3. Grokter's face twisted in disgust. "How pathetic," he spat. Even if they were up against high orcs, how could so many orc warriors struggle against just 3 enemies? The other orcs trembled at their chieftain's anger.